Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? Today, I'm talking with Matt Brill and Ryan Claterbaugh. They are the owners of, did I get it right?
You're very close.
Very close. I did before we started. See, I say when I screw up your name, everybody then remembers it, right?
That's true.
So Mr. Mosquito Control, which one of my favorite things because mosquitoes love me. Whatever it is, there's the person in the room that they never touch, and then I'm the guy like, you want to be outside with me because they're going to come right after me immediately. So talk to me a little bit about what Mr. does. Is it just mosquito control? Do you do other stuff?
So yeah, we are just a full service mosquito control company. We offer two different service types. One is the backpack spray, which is a little bit more common. A lot of people see that. The other one we do, which is a little bit more unique, is a misting system that goes in the backyard. So that's an actual system that's similar to a sprinkler system. You would install a series of nozzles and tubings that's connected to a pump and motor, and 3 times a day during peak mosquitoes hours, it goes off for 45 seconds and knocks everything out of the yard. So
okay, all right, yeah. And in places like Atlanta, I live next to a lake. Yeah, lots of
mosquitoes.
Next to a lake with a bunch of woods behind us, so we're very mosquito prone where I am. So talk to me about getting into this business. How did you guys get into this as a business?
So we think it's a good story. It's in 2012. My wife and I and 2 other couples were on vacation in St. Martin in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And we were staying at this villa and getting crushed by mosquitoes. And they had 4 full-time house staff at this place. And I mean, it was a very nice place. And so I said, hey, what do we do about the mosquitoes? And so they hand us a can of off, and they fumigated the rooms before we go to sleep, which that in and of itself was an issue.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Very healthy. And you just breathe deeply, you'll fall asleep quickly. And so now back up. Prior to that, when my wife and I, when our son was born, we moved into a house that had a swimming pool. And so we had one of these automated mosquito missing systems in our house, so I knew it was a possibility. And so my wife Stacy and I drove around the island of St. Martin, peeking over fences and backyards and, seeing if I could find any of these systems, and I couldn't. And so we said to the house manager, hey, listen, if we could get you a solution down here, do you think you could sell it? What does he say? I could sell it to every house here.
Right.
And so we were like, awesome. And so a friend of mine and I said, all right, let's do this. And we actually reached out to Ryan, who I had known because he was the one that installed my mosquito system and was running the area for the mosquito control company that we used, and said, hey, I've got this really awesome opportunity. Would you like to move down to St. Martin and run this business? And he was like, yeah, sounds good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then he ran it by his fiance, and she said, absolutely not. So we did it without him, and or tried to do it without him. And a year into it, we had labor issues, currency issues, banking issues, importing issues, every possible issue you could have. I mean, there's no property taxes down there. So I was literally on Google Maps zooming in to the nice parts of the island, counting houses to figure out, okay, well, what is our demographic and how do we contact them? And it was just an exercise in futility. It was painful.
So did you continue to do that? Or
for a while.
Okay.
And then Ryan in February of
2013,
reached out to me and said, hey, I'm leaving the company where I am, and I want to start something in Atlanta. And I said, great, let's do it. And We continued the St. Martin operation for a little bit after that, but then sold it to another friend of ours for $1.
I was going to say, the moral of the story is there are mosquitoes in St. Martin.
Lots of mosquitoes in St. Martin. And I own a truck somewhere on the island, so if you see it, let me know.
That is what's funny about owning a business. You do end up with these weird things in your past, and you're like, I do own that. I don't know why.
I own a Peugeot on the island of St. Martin, so I don't know where it is, what it's doing. I hope the driver's safe.
Right.
And so then we started Mr. Atlanta.
Okay, so you were with a company that did something similar or in the same space?
So I got out of school. I graduated roughly around the time the economy was sinking back before 2008, 2007, and I got offered a job in mosquito control, and I thought, no one was getting jobs, no one was getting salaried jobs. It was a salaried position. I was like, I'm going to try it. So I got into it, and it just stuck, and I really enjoyed the business model. I realized quickly early on it was profitable. I liked being in customer service, and I liked being part of stuff that was growing, so it just kind of stuck with me. I moved up with the company I was with and was running I was running in the Atlanta market, then moved to Austin to run a market, and then when I moved back to Atlanta is when I reached out to Matt.
And so then is Mr. is your brand?
No.
It's actually Matt's brand.
It's our brand.
Your brand.
Yeah,
meaning
we started
it's not
it.
a franchise.
No, it is not.
Because it has a very franchise feel to it.
Thank you.
It
We
does.
get that a lot.
It really
yeah,
does.
It's
which is a good thing.
Yeah,
I
we
think.
take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
It's we work with a great team of marketers that I worked with back in my marketing days, and they done just a bang up job on logo, copy. I mean, we wanted a fun brand. I mean, mosquito control and pest control is a pretty old, stodgy.
Yeah, could be. Yeah,
could be.
Right.
Could be. Historically, has been. And so we wanted to do something with, our sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mosquito control, so we're not, it's not brain surgery. We're not, running hedge funds, and so we, take ourselves lightly, and we think the brand says that.
And I want to unpack something you talked about the model itself as it relates to, you like the business model, you like how it works, but is it seasonal?
It is seasonal in Georgia and pretty much every other state except Florida, where it's 12 months out of the year. So we operate about 8.5 months out of the year, usually beginning of March through late October, sometimes in November, just depending on the temperatures.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And so as you've thought about this business and started to put it together, so the two of you decided first half that you wanted to work together. Talk to me about the early days of deciding that you were going to go after this in Atlanta and what that looked like first.
It was kind of, Matt and I had kind of built a relationship, one from when he was a customer of mine, and then two, when he...
a very high maintenance customer.
Very high maintenance customer of mine. So we got pretty close. I'd go to his house on Sundays and see him when he called me. And I was trying to watch a football game. But when he talked about St. Martin, I was available during that process and helped out a lot. So it was easy to reach out to him and just say, hey, I want to... Well, when I first initially reached out to him, I said, hey, I want to use your vendors and who you're using, and if you could connect me. And he's like, hey, why don't we do this in Atlanta? And I was like, no brainer, let's do it. And so that's kind of how it got started.
Okay.
Over tacos.
Yeah, and in our literally over tacos on Piedmont. In our first probably 160 to 190 customers were people I knew.
Okay.
And so we would get the applications in, the agreements in, and it was all names I knew, and I would reach out and thank you so much. And then we got this one that I didn't know, and then another one that I didn't know, and then another one that I didn't know. And so that's when we felt like maybe we've got something here. It was when people that neither of us knew were actually signing up for service because they had heard about us from somebody else.
And I've driven around and seen your signs. So you do a good job of putting kind of the yard signs out, which is a way to help people get to that word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And neighbors are always asking, what is the thing that works or doesn't. So recently I just did a bunch of landscaping, and we have deer in our neighborhood. buy deer off. It is the best stuff ever. And I've had all my neighbors coming and asking, how are you keeping the deer from eating your hostas? I'm like, because I'm using this thing called deer off, right? So because you want to,
That's cool.
you know,
Is that the garlic smelling stuff?
it's the stuff that smells like death.
I killed my wife's hydrangeas
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, there's one
I
that
may
smells
have
like
overdone
death.
it. Yeah.
And then when they eat it, it has like a Tabasco, like a pepper spray, but it's supposed to invoke their flight risk or flight.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now we have found a couple of baby deer around the house. They don't eat the hostas, but they put their baby deer in the middle of death. I don't know what that means, but anyway. So neighbors and talking about kind of word of it sounds like you started off with like word of mouth. Who do I know? But then getting those signs out there and getting other people to say that it's working. That's really.
I mean, I would sit on Facebook and watch, and as somebody I could see what came on. This is when we first started. I would shoot them a note and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about mosquito control?" And my friends were probably like, "Why is Matt Brill?" So prior to that, I was in financial services. So
Right.
they're probably like,
They probably thought you had a hot stock tip, right?
right, yeah. Like, have you ever heard about? Have you ever considered mosquito control? They're probably like, what are you talking about? No, not really.
Right.
What is mosquito control? Well, let me tell you. And so that's how we got our first clients was
Which gave us a good boost. It's funny because Matt texted me one weekend. I think it was Easter weekend. I remember because I was visiting family and I was in a hotel and he's like, signed up 26 people this weekend. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, where? And he's like, Facebook. I've just been hitting people up on Facebook. I'm like, that's amazing. Keep doing it.
Power of social media. And so you sign them up and now you got to service them. So at the beginning, was it just the two of you running around or did you already
and
like
we had
have a structure
another
in place?
we had another partner at the time.
Okay.
And so it was the three of us, and it was us doing the sales. It was us doing the service. Ryan had the experience, so when I could spray a backyard. I mean, that I could do. But when it came to installing a system, I was not going to be, I did not know how to do that. And so Ryan was the expert on all the operational stuff and on the industry itself. And it was funny. I don't remember if it was our first or second system that we were installing. And the ones we were using then mounted on the side of the house. And so we're drilling through this house. And our other partner at the time said, shouldn't we call an expert? And Ryan and I looked at him and said, we are the experts. So everybody did everything.
Yeah.
And then, as we grew, it got more, not siloed, but, okay, I'm really good at this, and you're really good at this, and
you're trying to figure that out kind of naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that happens. I've started a couple of businesses with partners where you think they're going to end up doing one part, but then they're more naturally good at something
You
else.
end up being better at something else.
Yeah, so you divide it up. But the division is really important to making it successful. I rarely see the solo entrepreneur, talk about that solo going to take on the world by themselves. It's almost always a partnership where somebody kind of helps to, even just to move you along, right? Providing both accountability and support and being there. So, yeah. All right, well, we're going to go to commercial break. And when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about some lessons maybe you learned along the way, some things maybe you do differently or better.
There are plenty of them.
Plenty of those. So you're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm talking with Matt Brill and Ryan Claterbaugh.
Perfect.
All right. They're the owners of Mr. Mosquito Control. We'll be back in just a minute.
Eric, tell us about Laddering Works.
So Laddering Works is a company that helps other businesses in one of two ways.
Okay.
So your company is either growing and you're not exactly sure how to keep up. So you need to scale operations, maybe raise some money, those kind of things.
So growing too fast.
Growing too fast. Growing too fast. You got kind of structural, you walk in every day, there's a fire. You've been doing it longer than 3 years or 1,000 days, and you still feel like you can't step away from the business and take a vacation. So we help companies on that side. So sort of operational support, looking at their financing, seeing if there's a way that we can help them, get to the next level. Or you're a company that's not doing any marketing at all. So you are maybe stalled. Your business has gotten to a certain level, you make a certain amount of money every year, but you've never gotten above that. And we come in and build marketing structure. So both of them are operational at the end of the day. It's about creating a process and a way to approach it that's strategic. It's that owners don't often know how to do both of those. So they're really good at sales, which means they may need operational structure because they're out signing more customers than they know what to do with. Or they've built a beautiful product that's the best kept secret. And so they need somebody to come in and help them market that product. And so that's the kind of businesses we look for. We come in as a stopgap and we work with a company for somewhere around 12 to 18 months typically, solve those problems for them and leave them better than we found them. And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking today with Matt Brill and Ryan Claterbaugh. And it's always a test. Owners of Mr. I almost called him Mr. Mosquito, Mr. Mosquito Control. And they were sharing kind of how they got the business started, very typical where they were off doing everything and then they figured out who kind of divided into what pieces. So if I were to come to you and say I was going to do a similar business, because services businesses are great businesses for houses and, you buy the house and then all of a sudden you got to have all the people who show up and do the things that the homeowners either don't know how to do or don't want to do. I typically fall in the second category. Yeah. Could do it, don't want to do it. So that goes back to my childhood. So anyway, if you were to talk to someone either from maybe specifically within your industry or about a services business in general, what are some things you'd tell them to watch out for, some things that, some lessons you guys have learned along the way?
It's a great question, and we do get calls from people in the industry wanting to know how have you guys built what you've built. The lessons. We've made lots of mistakes, and some are repeated mistakes, and I know we're making progress when it's a new mistake. One of our biggest mistakes that we talk about, every time we make it is we've never let somebody go too soon.
Yeah.
Ever. And it is, that's something that, maybe one day we'll get better at. I'm not confident of that. It's the kind of guys that we are. We just, try to find the good in everybody and support. And at some point you can't support anymore.
Right.
Other lessons.
For service industry related, keep your pricing good. You need you don't have to be the highest person in the game, but you need to keep good, consistent pricing. We see a lot of competitors that come in and they are either all over the board with their pricing or they come in really low. Well, 2 or 3 years later, they're not there anymore, and it's because they're not making enough money to survive, or you get enough customers and one of them walks across the street and she's like, oh, I'm only paying 45, but you're paying 100. And you got to keep that consistent pricing in any service industry you do. You can't be all over the board, and you got to keep it where you're still making, profit every day.
Yeah, that looking at switching costs, like 45 to 100, that's significant. But if it's 45 to 60,
you may be able to justify that, but it blows me away by sometimes we have people that we talk with that are like, I do this and this, and I'm just like, whoa, how do you not? You got to have consistent pricing, because you got to look at some of these big companies. That's how they become successful, is they're consistent with their entire model, and it doesn't matter if you're in Georgia or you're in Texas or you're in California, it's all the same. So you got to look at it that way, even at a small scale. So one of the other things that I forgot what I was going to say. I had another point that
it was brilliant, whatever it was.
It was, yeah.
Well, and I guess my question is the plan to you said you got an 8.5 month season. So what do you do with the other part of the year?
So once upon a time, I used to run summer camps, resident summer camps, sleepaway camps, and everybody would say, "Oh, what do you do for the rest of the year? Do you just travel?" And that's where the work happens. So our service delivery happens in those 8 months, but making sure we can deliver those services and accommodate new customers and how we get those new customers, that all happens, from November to February.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe my question is
Yeah.
more in sort of the staffing model, because like I've got a friend of mine who
Yep.
does the King of Pops, and so King of Pops is definitely seasonal, and so
Right.
what he does with they do trees now. So at the Christmas season when
Oh
they're
yeah,
not really
the
selling
tree
pops,
delivery. I saw that.
yeah, they do like
Yep.
the tree elves or something.
it's
So it's a way
great.
for him to keep the staff busy for 12 months. Are you guys staffing up and staffing down, or how does that work in the off
So
seasons?
it's been a struggle since the beginning, and Matt and I every year come to the same thing. We say, okay, what are we going to do this year for the off season? And so one thing that we decided on early on and we've stuck with is that we are really good at mosquito control. Let's stick with mosquito control. We don't want to do anything outside of what we're not really, really good at, just to make a little bit of extra money. So we typically will have agreements with some other local companies, guys we know, one of them that does Christmas lights, and some of the employees will go over there to work. And then
There's a friend of ours that owns a tent company, and
Okay.
so that's a big season for them. So they'll bring on. I mean, we essentially become a free placement agency
Got it.
in the off season.
So instead of diversifying your own services, you're sticking to what you know well and then moving. to
Correct.
diversify.
yeah, we've tried. There are, we added gutter cleaning, for
Yeah.
example, which seemed very logical, and like we could definitely do that. The problem is we'd clean gutters, and the customer would say, "Hey, there's some leaves on the roof." Well, we do gutter cleaning, not roof cleaning.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make that customer happy, and so if we can't make that customer happy, then we shouldn't be doing it.
And I would tell you that there is a business for roof cleaning.
interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
It scares me. Ladders and heights. I'm very risk averse in terms of our technicians and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, well, I just tell you, landscapers don't do it. And have a person who's lived under trees now for almost 20 years, like every year, it's just like, I got to get on the roof. And our house has like 7 different roofs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there needs to be, somebody needs to do that. So, gutter cleaning and roofs.
Mr. Roof Cleaner.
Well, we hired a landscaper, and we hired him in the summer, and we barely have any grass. And we did that on purpose because we wanted to like trick him into having to do the leaf season because there's so many leaves. Are like,
Smart.
yeah, that's smart.
Strategic hiring.
So in dealing with like customers and that area, is it pretty simple, or is that a tough?
It's simple in that the customer's always right. I mean, that we make simple in terms of our communication with the customer, and then how we address it and handle it on the back end. I mean, so in mosquito control, one of the things is retreats, right?
Yeah.
So
like we've had such a wet season.
yeah, so we guarantee our treatments. Everything's guaranteed. Your happiness is guaranteed. Everything's guaranteed, and we back that up. And I mean, you can see from our reviews, people experience that. So if we go out and treat somebody, and treatments take about 20 to 30 minutes to dry. After that, it's fine. If it rains 4 hours later and the customer calls in and says, "Hey, it rained after the treatment." Well, so we say, "Well, are you seeing mosquitoes?" And if they start to push, we're okay. We go and take
Right,
care of it.
Right.
So we actually were having this conversation the day before yesterday with our team in the office, talking about how do we address it, because retreats take resources. We don't get paid for them. It's part of doing business, and there's a reasonable rate at which they should be occurring. And if they're above that rate, what can we do to bring it down to what we think is the reasonable rate? But we really, I mean, it is extraordinarily cliche to say, but the customer is always
Yeah.
right.
And
So-
we put a lot of focus and training on customer education for the technicians who are out in the field and see them the most. And when we talk to them on the phone, I mean, we really think about what we're saying and how we're messaging it so they can kind of understand. Because we know the answers, but just because you sign up doesn't mean you always know the answer.
Right.
But we also need, once we do a little bit of customer education, and then usually after the second or third time of interaction, we notice that things like that will fall off because they're like, oh, well, we know what to expect, and we know that they're going to come back if I really want them to, and they're back out within 24 hours, so I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. And that is it's a deal in customer and customer service. It's how you handle those first initial pieces
Right.
that then the trust is established and it becomes simpler.
Right.
Though maybe you said Matt never was simpler. He was always.
He
a Sunday
wasn't
call.
mean about it.
Ever. I'm not a mean
He's just
person.
like, it's Sunday. I'd like to use my pool.
Yeah, I mean, it
You
was.
come out now.
I'd shoot him a text, and I'd say, "Hey, we're out at the pool. My son's covered in mosquito bites," and like I would leave it open ended. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I expect you here now. So I'd leave it open-ended. And because he is so good at what he does, he'd respond, be like, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I'll leave watching the Cowboys game.
I did see the Cowboys key rings. I was like,
Yeah. So, I mean, and so that, Ryan's service delivery when I was a client of his is what let me know that we can be great partners because we have the same type of, and in financial services, I was dealing with ultra high net worth individuals. And so we combined that and brought, we wanted people to say, wow, I didn't expect that from my Mosquito guys.
Yeah. So future for you guys. I mean, I told you at the beginning, I would have, if I had been asked.
Probably roof
pushed, cleaning. I'll be your first customer. Guaranteed. So it's like I had a guy out doing pressure washing on the house the other day, and it said pressure washing in gutters. And so I was like, cool, you do pressure washing and gutters. I need some gutters. He's like, no, I pressure wash gutters. I was like, oh, you need to be clear. I thought you sell gutters.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So he was explaining to me how they put gutters on the house. And all that. I'm like, I get that. I thought you did that, but okay. So Mr. I told you, said it felt like a franchise. Like if somebody had asked me without me having met you guys, I would have said it was a franchise, that you guys picked up a franchise location and so there were things like that in your plans, or what do you want to do next?
I mean, we talk about franchising every year. Our question is, did we miss the boat on the Mosquito franchising wave? There's Mosquito Squad, Mosquito Authority, Mosquito Joe. There was one last year that started called Mosquito.
Oh, wow.
They had a mojito on their website.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
A mojito. I'm like, that's one of the more interesting things. And so it is, just because, we think something's a good idea now doesn't mean we think it's a good idea in 6 months. So we reevaluate all of that. Something we definitely want to do is grow into other markets, and whether it's as a franchise or a company-owned storage moving into other markets, it's in the planning process.
Okay. Well, I would say, as an outsider, not knowing where you were, you feel very established. So you should
thank
be
you
able to
very
do
much.
that easily. You don't. Yeah. So and it takes a lot to feel that way, right?
It does, yeah.
To
The
get that
franchise model is
established.
interesting, but we look at it too, and it's like right now we work for the customers, right?
Right.
You open up a franchise, and now you work for
Yeah.
the people that are buying the
Well, and it could be
franchisees
franchise or expansion.
Right.
So you feel primed for expansion just based on the way you've established it and
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah, this year I think we're probably
We figured out
ready.
what we're doing
You know
finally.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, you look like you know what you're doing. So I would never have said otherwise.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So any last piece of advice you'd give to somebody if they were deciding to start a business?
Start it domestically first.
very good advice.
Don't go to St. Martin's.
Great place to vacation.
Right. Lots of mosquitoes.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Simple business models
Yeah.
are it's the best way to go.
Yeah.
We talked to somebody yesterday who they worked for a company that did porta-johns, placement.
Which by far is one of my favorite things to pay attention to, because they have great names.
They do.
Great names, and nobody wants to be in that business.
Right.
And so, it's businesses like that. And, I think that, if you're willing to, just work at it. I mean, for us, the service industry, we like it a lot. We like being direct to consumer.
Mm-hmm.
We like dealing with the consumers. We like taking if there's a problem call, we take it ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, what advice would you give?
Yeah, that was my advice. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Don't get too complicated or worked up about.
Well, and everybody wants to do like the cool, sexy thing, and there's so much more money. And
Mosquito Control's not sexy.
No, it's not.
Don't tell my wife.
Mr. is a pretty sexy brand,
It's so fun.
but Mosquito Control is not sexy.
That whole movement of doing the fun companies, and it's just there's so much. There's riches in the niches.
There is.
If you can
absolutely.
find the simple
Riches
businesses,
in the niches.
you will succeed if you do what other people don't want to do.
Yeah, the things that people want to have done for them.
Right.
And you see service trucks in neighborhoods over and over again.
Right.
My street is full of them. Roofers, plumbers, they're coming in and out. The thing that nobody wants to know how to do, or doesn't know how to do, or doesn't want to do, right? And and that's the other reason why you should focus. So many entrepreneurs want to say, "Oh, we do all this stuff." It's like, no, do a couple things really well.
I agree.
Right? That's going to be what's going to make you stand alone. Don't try to do everything. So yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. We really appreciate it.
So you've been listening to Build Your Best Business. I've been talking with Matt Brill and Ryan Claterbaugh.
Got it.
I say it and then you laugh, and so then I'm like, is that right or wrong? Owners of Mr. Mosquito Control. Now, until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?